Okay, can we talk about something that nobody really talks about in these cute coming out TikToks? It's the loneliness. Not the dramatic my family disowned me loneliness. No, please don't. Not the obvious stuff. I mean more the quiet kind, right? The kind that creeps in after the congratulations, after the we're so proud of you, and after you finally get to be yourself. And then you sit there and go, why do I feel more alone than I ever did before? Well, you know, I'll tell you a little story about myself. When I came out, I thought the hardest part would be over. Like, okay, cool, I survived the identity crisis, I survived the fear, and I survived what if everyone leaves me? So logically, you would think life should get better, right? And in some ways it did, but what nobody told me was that coming out doesn't just reveal you. It rearranges your entire social ecosystem, so to say. And that process is destabilizing, to say the least. I grieved friendships that I technically didn't have, or they didn't even end. But have you ever had someone still be in your life, but the dynamic and the vibe is kind of off? Like, they're supportive, but there's a subtle distance. They don't joke the same way, they don't confide the same way with you. They treat you a little more carefully, let's say. And you don't know if it's respect or if it's discomfort with you and who you are. And that ambiguity, it's pretty lonely because no one did anything wrong, but something really shifted. And then there is the other thing. You don't fully fit into cis spaces anymore. I know. We hate this word. But you also don't automatically feel at home in queer spaces. And nobody tells you about that, like, middle zone, or like ground zero you're walking on right now. I thought once I came out, I would just magically feel belonging. Like there would be this dramatic, yes, my people, hello, how are you doing? How are you doing, fellow kids? And sometimes there is, don't get me wrong. But sometimes only you walk into a queer space and realize everyone is also traumatized, everyone's also guarded, and everyone is also trying to figure themselves out. And suddenly you're like, oh, we're all a little different here. And if you're sitting here thinking, okay, wow, this is a little too accurate for myself, you're not weird feeling this. When I was in this stage, I generally thought something was wrong with me. Like, I had finally become myself and somehow failed at it miserably. So if these kind of honest, slightly uncomfortable conversations help, you can stick around. Maybe subscribe if you want. Not for the algorithm, just so we can keep talking about the parts nobody romanticizes, alright? Let's go deeper. I think a lot of us expect community to heal the loneliness. And community helps. Belonging is different. Belonging isn't just shared identities, it's shared safety. And safety takes time. Especially if you grow up hiding with it. Especially if you learn that being fully seen was dangerous for you. Because there's this psychological part nobody wants to talk about. When you come out, you're more visible. Everyone knows that. And if people say it's not true, they're lying. I'm sorry. Visibility can activate your nervous system, even in safe environments, right? Your body doesn't instantly know what you're allowed to do and if you're allowed to even exist at the moment. So you end up in rooms where people accept you, really, and your body still feels alone. That's not you being broken, that's trauma catching up to you very slowly, but it is. There's also loneliness of outgrowing your old self. I don't mean that in a cringe, glow up and new era type of way that all the influencers use. No, I mean generally grieving who you used to be, even if that version was masking. Even if that version was surviving. That person got you here though. Like, it got you to this point. And when you transition socially, medically, or internally, it doesn't really matter, you lose access to certain privileges. You lose invisibility, you lose simplicity, and you lose being unquestioned. And even if you don't want those things back, losing them is still a loss after all, and grief is isolating. Because how do you explain that to someone? Yeah, I'm happier, but I'm also kind of depressed right now. People don't know what to do with you. Or to do with that. Right? So let's also talk about something uncomfortable. Sometimes we isolate ourselves more after coming out. Not intentionally, but because we're exhausted. You're calculating bathrooms, you're calculating safety, you're calculating how you're being perceived. You're educating people, you're correcting pronouns, you're reading the room constantly. And that hyper-awareness, that fucking drains you. Trust me, it's insanely draining. It's like a full-time job. And when you're drained, you withdraw. You go into your little dark room and you lock yourself up in there. It's to recharge, obviously. And then you blame yourself for not being there and locking yourself up in your little room. It's a fun cycle, isn't it? I also had this belief that once I was authentic, connection would be automatic. Like authentic like equals intimacy, but authenticity makes intimacy possible. It doesn't create it for you, blah blah blah. You still have to practice vulnerability. You still have to risk being misunderstood. Coming out doesn't magically make you emotionally available. It actually exposes how hard closeness is for you and how hard it is to learn like how to socialize with people. And that realization makes you even more lonely at that point. The cycles continues. You know the horseshoe theory? It is that. So here's the philosophical part. Identity is partly social. We become ourselves in a relationship to others. So when you change your identity, your mirrors change. The way people reflect you changes. And for a while, you don't recognize yourself in those reflections. That in-between stage, plug for my Discord, is disorienting. You're not who you were, but you are not fully stabilized as who you're becoming right now. Like, you're in this in-between. And in-between spaces are inherently lonely. It is what it is. That doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. No, it absolutely doesn't. It means you're in a transition. And transition, by definition, is unstable. So what do we do about it? Right? You might be asking me now, Azrael, what are we doing about it? I'm not here to spiral, okay? And leave you in an existential fog. First, separate isolation from rejection, please. Sometimes you're not being rejected, you're recalibrating. Second, stop expecting shared identity to equal instant closeness. Not every trans person is your friend. Not every cis person because you're cis is your friend, right? That's what I mean. Look for emotional safety, not just shared labels, please. Third, if you feel the urge to withdraw, ask, am I unsafe or am I overstimulated? Sometimes you don't need to disappear, you need to rest. Fourth, build belonging intentionally, not big dramatic community overhauls. Small consistent interactions here and there, one person, one space, repeat over time. Belonging is built slowly, which is annoying. We all want like that instant friend, right? But it's real. It takes a lot of time. And maybe the most important thing, don't interpret loneliness as failure. Loneliness after coming out doesn't mean you're unloved. It doesn't mean you choose wrong. It means your life shifted, and shift creates space. An empty space feels scary before it feels like a possibility to fill it with joy, really. So, if you're in this weird middle right now, the I'm finally myself, but why does it feel so quiet phase, you're not broken. You're adjusting, and adjustment is awkward and lonely and confusing. But it's also where new connections form, and the real kind of connections. The kind where you don't have to shrink yourself for others. And yeah, it takes time. I hate that answer too, honestly. But rather give it a real answer than a pretty one. Because I don't want to beat around the bush with everyone here. You're not alone in feeling alone. And that's what matters more than we admit.